Prezentarea o să fie în engleză. Okay, so we've all heard about how important purpose is when it comes to marketing. This has been going on for a few years now. And there's this, what looks like a trend towards having brands embed purpose in their strategies, companies transitioning in this direction, and so on. However, while this is becoming more and more present, we don't see success stories so much. And how I structured this presentation is in 3 chapters. First, we'll look at how, where is this pressure coming from regarding purpose and integrating purpose within our brands and communication and companies. Second, why are so many of us failing when it comes to purpose-led marketing? And third, what else we can do about it. So first of all, I would like us to have a joint understanding regarding what purpose is, because it's about the reason for which something exists, but it's not about a materialistic reason or about utility reason. It's about the meaningful reason for its existence. So it's elevated. And when purpose exists, and is strong, and the entity that holds it, whether it's a person or a company, is true to it, all of its actions and all of its behaviors, decisions, and the journey are aligned with it. And if we look at people and how does purpose translate for people in their daily lives, this is something that's extremely valuable, and it's basically, on one hand, one of the questions that we are searching for the answer. What's the purpose of us? What's our life purpose? And second, once we discover it and once we figure it out, it influences and it can be a life changer. So this is something that's really big in people's lives and has multiple implications. And I chose an example. It's from my personal perspective. Elon Musk is maybe the strongest contemporary example to what a purposeful life can lead to. Now, I won't comment on what he does and how and so on, but it's an example of how a purpose-led life can lead to incredible accomplishments. And the reason why I'm giving this example here is because while many of us have the feeling that others are smarter than us, they're more gifted, they know better, and many of us have this feeling, we actually hold a lot of power inside of us. And if one person can do what he accomplished in such a short period of time, things like this can be accomplished by so many of us. And I think this is a wonderful example in this sense. Now, looking at where purpose and this pressure is coming from. So, as Flavia was also saying, we are undergoing a massive transformation. So, from a global perspective, we are going through a paradigm shift. We are now in transition, and purpose and sustainability are not trends. These are principles that will stay at the foundation of a new paradigm that we are moving into. And I will focus on just 2 elements that are massive factors of influence within this transition. One is, and this very much builds on the presentation before, the increase in consciousness and awareness, because people are tapping into themselves and finding their voice. They're more spiritual, they're looking for meaningful connection, they are going to mindfulness, taking care of their bodies and spirit and everything else. And on the other side, we have some form of let's say, a sustainability crisis. And I'm not speaking only from the perspective of climate change. I'm speaking from the perspective of all of the aspects that are covered by the UN Sustainable Development Goals, from the injustice that is out there, the inequality, the unequal wealth distribution, the issues with, there are many aspects. So this is something that we as society and as a world, we're coming together to try to solve. And at the same time, people are in this mindset that was talked about so far. So it's important to understand that these are not trends. These are here to stay. And building on this sustainability situation that we have, people, and when I say people, it's not about consumers and us marketers looking at that, observing. We are all people, first of all, irrespective of our profession. So, and people expect from companies, and governments, of course, expect from companies to facilitate or do something to have a positive impact. And this is also connected with the revenue that they're, let's say, perceived as entitled to have, and the gains that they have, because they're so much connected to the issues that we have right now. And they're connected to the issues that we have to fix in our society overall. And to the harm that has with pollution and all of the aspects. So this is why these things are connected. Now, why, looking at the marketing landscape, also in Romania, but overall, because it's a global tendency, why are we as industry failing at purpose-led marketing? Well, we lack credibility, and I will explain all of these. We lack credibility, we lack real purpose, and we need to talk about what real purpose means. And we look at purpose from the perspective of a strategy, or even confuse it with CSR. And purpose is not a strategy. Strategies come from purpose. It's quite the opposite. So to deep dive a bit into this. There are multiple sources of information for how our profession, our joint profession, marketing, advertising, is perceived, and it's very low in terms of trust. It's below politicians, and that says a lot. And I frequently ask myself how we can shift what we're doing to step out of this, to grow, to outgrow it, because it won't be working so well in the future for sure. And the credibility issue is both with our profession and with corporations in general, because companies, corporations are associated with the drive for making profits. They're associated with the issues that we have now, as I said, in the world, and our profession is overall associated with the fact that we've been painting a nice image while things weren't quite like that, and that impacts how we are seen and how much credibility we have. There's a lot of data. Also, there's the aspect of saying something and doing something else. That is so present in many cases, and now it led to things like greenwashing. Also, recently we have purpose washing, and so on. So there's a lack of credibility also because what we say and do are in many cases not quite the same. Also, it's also about how we think. And I'm not talking specifically about you or myself, but as a tendency overall in our industry and as a tendency overall in the corporate world, because let's look at this quote for a second. Saying, simply put, consumer demand for purpose-driven brands means that companies who amplify their positive social and environmental impacts will also maximize their revenues. The bottom line is that having a purpose is good business, is the business of the future. So what does this tell us from the perspective of a way of thinking? It positions purpose from the perspective of a lucrative business. And it's not about that. It's quite the opposite, because purpose comes from existentialism, is rooted there, and is rooted in values and in things like that, while the corporate mentality overall is rooted in materialism, and these two are incompatible. So there needs to be some form of bridging between the two, because for now it doesn't work, and this mentality cannot deliver the authenticity that people are looking for when it comes to giving a brand a credibility that is indeed purposeful. And here I included an example, and while I won't comment on the work other people did, I'm including this because I think it's important for us to be aware, reflect, and think about how anchored we are in, let's say, multidimensional reality that goes beyond our daily marketing and communication bubble, in a way, and how relevant what we do in some cases actually is on a wider level. Do we have sound?
Our marketing needs to feed the human hunger for connection too. We need to start listening, empathizing, connecting. Today, we need to stop marketing and start humaning. Marketing made right for snacking made right.
So this is the new, was announced about a year ago as the new marketing strategy for Mondelez. And again, while I won't comment, I think it's important for us to be mindful of how relevant we are and the implications of what we are putting out there. Now, how can we do it? And here, I will have a very strange slide. So what's up with the four-headed dinosaur? Anyway, as a side comment, my daughter made me more or less to take myself less seriously, and so maybe a few years ago I wouldn't have put a slide with dinosaurs and things like that. But the point with this slide is that when we are in certain contexts, we just use a certain part of ourselves. So we are, in a way, fragmented. Because when we are in our workplace or work environment, we have a certain set of principles or filters that we use that are associated with that particular context. And when we go home and are within a personal context, we have a different set of filters. And when we are on our own, then there's a different set of filters, and so on. And this, what I call the Frankenstein split, is creating blind spots for us. Because if our view is not integrated, the way in which we apply, let's say, our common sense is also unidimensional, let's say. And we don't acknowledge certain aspects. We lose them from sight, unwillingly. So this integrated view is quite important. Now, being more concrete, I'm trying to say several things with this slide. So first, purpose is not a marketing strategy, and neither is sustainability. Marketing is highly important when it comes to these two aspects, but the burden, let's say, or the pressure or the task is not a marketing duty. This is about the full company. And of course, marketing can shape it in a beautiful way and elevate it and do amazing things with it, but it needs to come from the company. And the point of this, why I built this structure, is to explain two things. So on one hand, some companies start from having no purpose and no sustainability. Others start from different other levels. And some companies have, various companies have various profiles. For example, when you have a large multinational company that has hundreds of brands, it's a different way of applying purpose and integrating purpose within that company and therefore those brands than for a company that has a single brand or is more unified, let's say. So to be able to navigate this, because it's basically applying purpose after the fact for a company that didn't have it from the very beginning, So there needs to be flexibility. And the two elements that can be worked with to build this and to apply it tailored to the way in which it's feasible and makes sense is, on one hand, purpose as a, if possible, and second, sustainability principles, because sustainability gives a context and gives an opportunity for brands to infuse purpose in a way that's different from having an actual embedded purpose from the very start and having that kind of purpose. But still, it's proof of having values and giving back to society and being mindful and so on. So depending on what's the structure of the company and many, many other aspects, these elements can be integrated in different ways. And for example, you can have a company and a brand that cannot have a purpose in that way because it's part of a giant. Also, you have a local market that doesn't have access to changing the global strategy and so on, so you need to apply it locally. So what do you do then? You can take the sustainability values and integrate them, see what is the area that is most relevant to you and that you can own, and then build on that. And that's also a form of purpose. So sustainability can be a form of purpose. It's not really a purpose because it's about how you do business, not about why you do it, but it's still a form of, let's say, aligning yourself to this new paradigm and demonstrating the fact that you have ethics behind and that you function on certain principles. Now, where do you start? And because, again, it's a tricky situation because it is not really a marketing job. Marketing cannot do it in silo. It needs to have support from all the other departments. I'm not even sure it's really meant to be championed by mass marketing. It depends on the company and on the functions that it has inside. But for sure, given the role that marketing has both inside and outside the company, it's very suitable for the marketing lead to be the one who is championing this inside and driving this change, like being this positive transformation, change agent internally. And where you can start is by looking at the intersection and what you find at the intersection between three things. So on one hand, what are the things that create value for the company? And this also includes the materialistic part because obviously there needs to be form of profit. Then what is relevant for the company, because with sustainability also we tend to go in many areas that have nothing to do with us as a industry or as a area of action. So what is relevant for us and for what we do, what creates value for us and what creates value for society. And at the intersection of these things, you find the sweet spot of elements that are worth looking into and starting from. And there are tools to do this in a very structured and organized way. For example, PricewaterhouseCoopers has a, and I'm not associated in any way, I'm just mentioning, they have a tool, it's called TIM, T-I-M-M, and it's a tool for identifying, let's say, value territories and also measuring the kind of impact that that certain aspect has both internally and externally within the wider pool of stakeholders that it impacts. So it's a measurement tool that is very, it can be very useful. Okay, and then how to do it as a marketing person inside the company, given that so many other things that depend, that purpose and sustainability depend on are beyond our power. And one thing that can be tried is, for example, to push to create some form of internal task force or some form of council or bring together people from various departments to start collaborating. So that's the first step, because these things need to work together to function. To deliver. Then there's a need for a lot of informal sensing and pulse taking, and definitely, absolutely, top management needs to be involved, because for this to then have credibility and for you to be able to have executive decision levels in situations where there might be risks involved or there might be some form of financial cost, of course, top management needs to be involved, and also their statements need to then be aligned with whatever is that you will define. Then credibility, how to build it. To be credible, it's important to understand that the credibility comes from the overall activity of the company. It's not just brand, it's not just what you say in a campaign, it's everything. So if you are not consistent throughout all of the dimensions in which you operate, it's not credible, because stories come out and the credibility you build on one side gets demolished by what's happening on the other. So these things need to work together. And another thing that is very important in building a success story, let's say, is put it hard in a way at the center of it, because in the end, this shift in principles and this transformation that we're going through is about caring for what doesn't directly interest us, not caring about just ourselves, just our profits, caring about the impact that we have on other people, on the environment, on other types of stakeholders, and operating within transparency, real transparency, that authenticity that Flavia was talking about earlier. So it's very important. Now, you can do a lot of things on top, let's say, to be more credible, but it's important to do them from an authentic place and not just from the perspective of a strategy, because people can tell. And I gave here some examples. So you can do meaningful things that aren't really necessary or don't serve a particular financial agenda, so you don't directly benefit from it. Or be proactive in your transparency and in your authenticity. Be open about the issues that you're having, or the negative things that you discovered that you did in the past, and how you are fixing them, or being struggling to fix them. And opening this kind of stories will not only build trust with people overall, but will also inspire other companies and will also foster this form of shared experience between companies, which is now not really happening outside very closed conversations within councils or coalitions or things like that. Also, it's about making sacrifices and being realistic, because some brands and some products will not survive this overall transformation. For example, a decision-making executive decision can be to already address some of this now before you get to that point. It can be drastic, but at the same time, it can be very meaningful as a gesture in some situations. Anyway, there can be many things that can be done. The important thing is for them to be done from an authentic place. And in the end, I would like to talk a bit about Nike. I didn't give examples in this because each company and each brand should have its own story, like each person and each individual has its own journey. So it's not about looking at what the others do and trying to do it ourselves, because it's not authentic if it's like that. It needs to come from within, from the company, and from the unique set of elements that it has. But I integrated this Nike example because on one hand, to make the point that credibility is hard to keep and very easy to lose, and the fact that it's okay to make mistakes, and it's inevitable to make mistakes. Just like people, we make mistakes all the time, and it's normal. The thing is not try to hide it, let's say. Be genuine about it. It's okay to have mistakes. So there are two aspects. Maybe you know both stories. One of them is regarding Allyson Felix and the issue that Nike had with sponsorship contracts for athletes that were under maternity leave. There was a big scandal, and in the end, they changed their policy and also did a maternity line to double down on the substantiation that they are indeed no longer in that mindset. And second is how they were, they had some backlash after their decision to take out some products in China, not to upset the Chinese people, but that came after the Copernic ad, which said that believe in something even if it means sacrificing everything. And they didn't, their actions weren't in line with that. So this is all from me. Now, these things are very much connected, and I don't know, I think it's the most important thing is for us to believe in what we do and to believe that how we spend our time and the things that are part of our lives are important because and valuable for us because we are those people and those consumers who are going through that transformation. And we have the possibility of both shaping our lives and shaping things around us in a way that's meaningful and powerful. That's it. Thank you so much.